Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Sarah and I are working out in the sprout house today, getting some last minute plants started, some last minute things that we need to still need to get started for the farmer's market, and the things that we need to actually get started for our own homestead and our own garden. While we've been out here working, we've just been talking about homesteading and what we've learned over the last 10 years or so. We've actually been homesteading now for over a decade, which seems pretty odd when I think back to our old lives of sitting at a desk all day and just kind of living that corporate America dream that everybody strives for. It got us thinking that there's a lot that we've learned since that time, and a lot of things that we have kind of realized now that we didn't realize about homesteading prior to getting as into it as we are now.
So we thought today would be a great time for us just to sit down and talk with you guys about some of the things that we've learned that maybe will help you all. Maybe you're not as far into this adventure as we are. Maybe you're just getting started. Maybe you're thinking about getting into homesteading, getting a couple chickens, building a garden, raising some food. We just thought that maybe you guys could learn a little bit from what we've learned over these past 10 years.
Now, for those of you who haven't been following us for a really long time, just a little bit of our backstory. We've actually originally had an urban homestead. We lived in the Phoenix, Arizona area. We had originally just a regular house in a neighborhood. We actually had a homeowners association.
Cookie cutter neighborhood.
Right. We weren't supposed to have any chickens or anything like that, but we did have chickens. We turned pretty much our whole yard into gardens, and that kind of got us hooked on homesteading. From there, we bought a property kind of on the outskirts of the Phoenix area that had 1.25 acres of land. We thought we were in heaven there because we had so much space with our 1.25 acres, and we got goats and we had chickens and we even raised some pigs and we had a huge garden and fruit trees and everything else, and that really got us excited about homesteading.
And then we decided that we were ready to take the leap into a different part of the country where we could grow and raise more of our food in a climate that was a little bit easier to do that in. And we actually took the biggest jump of all from corporate America to full-time homesteading, 100% debt-free. And we've been living that life here in southern Missouri for about 5 years now, learning and growing as much as we can.
So that kind of catches you up to, kind of our backstory and where we're coming from with some of the things that we want to talk to you about today. When we first started, there were a lot of things that we were probably pretty naive about, and we wish maybe someone had told us some of these things. Neither of us come from a farming background or from, a family that was really into all of this kind of stuff. So pretty much everything we know, we had to learn on our own. We have made friends with other people along the way who have done a lot of what we do, but for the most part, we've figured out most of what we need to do either just by trial and error, by watching YouTube videos, by looking things up online, and by just doing a ton of reading.
So as we were working today in the sprout house here, we really narrowed it down to 5 things that we really wanted to talk with you guys about.
So we're just going to jump right into it, you guys. The first thing that we want to talk to you about is something that I think everybody probably struggles with, and that is you're probably more capable of doing things than you think you are. A lot of people, when you start homesteading, are going to doubt you. They're going to doubt that you have the skills to do what you need to do. They're going to doubt that you're willing to do the hard work that it takes to be a homesteader or a farmer. And they're going to just doubt you in general that this seems like a really crazy thing to do.
Well, and honestly, you'll probably doubt yourself that you can do it.
Right.
Also.
Right.
For instance, when we were first starting out, we wanted to raise our own meat. That was really important to us, and we wanted to start with things that were on the smaller side.
Right, because we're still living in town.
Right, and kind of easy. So we started off with raising meat rabbits. And not only were we unsure if we would actually be able to butcher a rabbit, a live, cute, fuzzy, furry rabbit, but there were people in our lives that actually came up to us and said, there's no way you're going to be able to do that.
Right. They almost taunted us.
Absolutely. There's no way you're going to be able to take the life of a rabbit and then serve it on a plate and eat it. But we did. It was important enough for us to learn those skills, prove it to ourselves, and prove it to others that we were capable of providing for ourselves.
Right. And sometimes it's just a matter of overcoming that first kind of hurdle. And then you start to build confidence. You start to realize that you can do more and more and more things. And that as you go, you can build skills on to, what you've already learned. So we've gone from, not even knowing how to process a rabbit, which is probably one of the simplest things to process, to now butchering our own hogs, doing all the different cuts. Pretty much everything on the homestead we butcher ourselves. We may even attempt to butcher our own cow here coming up in the next year or so, once one of our steers grows up. So, you just really have to build that confidence, and you have to be, okay with your own abilities.
So it's a matter of determination and really learning on your own and investigating, building those skills. You are capable of doing so many more things than you ever thought you could do.
That was the first thing that we wish we would have known more about when we first started, is that really to just go at it and just give it your all, and you might just actually be amazed at what you can do.
Since we're on the topic of food, raising your own food and growing your own food, I want to talk a little bit more about that. One thing that has taken us a long time to realize is that it takes a lot of food to feed your family, especially when you start growing it for yourself. When you go to the grocery store and you're putting food in your basket at Walmart or at the grocery store or whatever, you're not paying attention to how much food goes in the basket, how much comes home with you.
Or how much food had to be raised to produce that food.
Absolutely. So when you start raising it and growing it yourself, it becomes a little bit overwhelming how much you actually need to produce to feed your family for a year.
Right. Yeah, we get questions and comments all the time, both on YouTube and in our real life, from people who are like, why do you raise all of those animals? You guys can't possibly eat that much in a year. And the truth is, for the most part, we do eat that much in a year, and so do you. Possibly even more.
Right.
But you just don't realize it when you're just going to the store and filling up a cart. We didn't realize it either when we used to live like that. But when you start actually growing it yourself, you do start to realize that.
Now, to give you guys an example, we'll take tomatoes, for example. When we started our own garden, we thought for sure that if we could grow 10 plants of tomatoes, that we could harvest enough and produce enough that it would satisfy our tomato needs for the year. Mostly salsa, tomato sauce, and diced canned tomatoes.
Right.
Well, we realized quickly that all of those things were gone in just over about 2 months.
Right.
So the next year we thought, okay, if we plant 3 times as many, if we plant 30 tomato plants, surely that will be enough for our family for an entire year of the tomato products that we wanted to preserve.
Right.
Again, that was not enough that next year. Now we grow anywhere from 90 to 100 plants of tomatoes, and we are just starting to satisfy all of our tomato needs, but that has also evolved into also barbecue sauce and ketchup and tomato soup and those kinds of things. So it just can kind of blow your mind when you really are doing a huge effort to grow as much of your food as you possibly can for an entire year, just how much food that really is.
Now, along those same lines, let's talk about chickens for a minute, because just recently you guys saw us do a video where we got our batch of meat chicks for this year. Every year we raise about 50 chickens for our family for just our own consumption here on the homestead. And we get a lot of people who say, why do you need 50 chickens a year? Plus you raise pigs, you raise turkeys, you hunt, you do all this other thing. Why do you need that much meat? Well, let's break that down a little bit. 50 chickens is not quite 1 chicken per week. So let's say 1 meal per week out of 50 chickens. Now, we might get 2 meals out of each of those chickens, maybe even 3 if we really stretch it. So let's go off that number. Let's go off 3 meals out of each chicken, which is probably way more than we really get. That would give us 150 meals a year out of those 50 chickens. But if you're really raising all of your own food and trying to eat as many meals as you can at home, there's over 1,000 meals a year that you need to plan for. Now, you probably don't have meat in every meal, but a lot of those meals you do, and if you're raising that all yourself, it quickly starts to add up why you would need at least 50 chickens per year for a family.
And you can kind of get an idea too of why we need so much other meat, why we need so many freezers and those kinds of things.
Right. Sometimes it's hard to lose track of that when you're just going to the store and putting meat in your cart and you just don't think about how many animals that would have taken, how much time and effort someone put into raising all of those so that you can have all of that meat all year. So when you start thinking about it in that way, it starts to make more sense that homesteading and raising your own food means you need to raise a lot of it. So that kind of leads me to my next point, and that is that not everybody in your life wants to be a homesteader or is going to understand why you want to be a homesteader. Absolutely. Think about the things we just talked about. How many tomatoes you need to grow in a year, how many chickens you need to raise in a year, pigs, or whatever other meat sources and vegetable sources you want. There's going to be people who you might really love and care about. They might be super close to you. It might even be, family members who look at you and say, why would you want to do all of that? Why would you want to do all of that work just for a can of tomato sauce when you can go to the store and buy a can of tomato sauce for $1?
Well, we have heard that type of comment since we got started.
Right.
And you know what? The hard thing that we have come to realize, because we're so excited to do this stuff. This is our life. This is our lifestyle. We eat and breathe all of these things.
Right.
But what's been hard for us to realize, and we finally have, is that, you know what? It's okay.
Right.
It's okay. Not everybody is going to be on board. Not everybody is going to be as excited about it. Not everybody's going to even really understand or know what you're even talking about when you say you love homesteading or you're a homesteader.
Right. Yeah, that's true. There's just a lot of people who don't care, and that's fine. I mean, everybody has their thing that they're into or that, really gets them excited. And you need to realize that when you start this, there are going to be a lot of people who think you're weird, that think that what you're doing is weird and that it's way too much work for the amount of payback that you get out of it. But the bottom line is, as long as you feel like the reward that you're getting out of it is worth it, that's all that really matters. You need to do what's best for you and your family, and those other people need to do what's best for them and their family. And so you just really need to push through that. You need to kind of push those voices out of your head, and you need to say, look, we're doing this because it's a healthy lifestyle. We're doing this because it gets us out in the fresh air and getting a ton of exercise. We're doing this because we love animals, because we love gardening. Whatever the reason is for you, you need to be doing that for your family.
And you can still feel good about having those fresh eggs, even though your neighbor or your friend or your relative just really would rather buy a dozen eggs for 69 cents at the grocery store.
Right.
Well, the last thing that we want to talk with you about, that's something that we have had the hardest time learning.
Right. This is probably the hardest lesson we've had to learn.
Is that we just can't do it all. We have tried to do it all, and we continue from time to time to do too many things, and we just every year have to kind of take a step back, evaluate what we're doing, and see if we should continue doing everything we're doing or if we should back off one thing or another, because we just cannot do it all.
Right. It is a hard thing to realize that you only have so much time in the day and that you only have so much physical energy to do, things throughout the day. So like Sarah said, there are things that over time we've just had to take a step back and say, we just can't do this. This has been a hard topic for me. There are things that, I want to be able to do. There's things that I feel like I should do, but that there's just not enough time in the day or enough time in the year to do everything. One of those things that comes to mind is firewood. We heat our house with wood all winter long. And when we first moved onto the homestead, it was my goal to cut all of our firewood myself every year, which is, probably 3 or 4 or 5 cords of wood a year. And, you know, I would cut it and split it and stack it and dry it, and we would use that all winter long. And then I would cut it and split it and stack it and dry it. We would use that all winter long. And I realized just the amount of time and energy that it takes to do that just really wasn't worth it for me. Here we can buy firewood rather cheaply. You know, someone else can do all of the work. They deliver it, and, you know, I usually have to stack it. But other than that, it's, you know, 1 or 2 days out of the year now. And I just, you know, have realized that that's something I just need to give up, at least for this time in our homesteading lives, because it's just something that took up too much time and took me away from other things that were more important.
One thing that I've wanted to do forever and ever, and we tried one time, was to raise bees for honey. I would really like to be more independent in that area of sugar replacement that we can provide here on the homestead. And maybe a year or two ago, we had the opportunity to bring bees onto the homestead, but we had so many things going on that we just didn't have the opportunity to learn what we needed to do to keep these bees alive, to keep them thriving, and to get the honey from them, and we failed. And we felt terrible.
Right. And, you know, we've heard a lot of times from a lot of different people, well, bees just aren't that much work. And truthfully, they're not a ton of work, but on top of everything else that's going on, it is a lot of work. And so you're going to have to make those decisions also when you start homesteading. You're going to have to decide what you want to do, whether or not you have the amount of time, the resources to do it, and then whether or not it fits into your long-term plans for your homestead. It's easy to watch people on YouTube and see everything that everybody is doing and want to do it all.
Or feel like you should be expected to do it all.
When the truth is, you're just seeing a small snippet of what really goes on a homestead every day while you're watching on YouTube, both on ours and on everybody else's homestead. So you need to really, you need to really keep that in the back of your mind as you're watching things. Of course, YouTube is a great place to get ideas. It's a great place to learn. We all build community. We learn from each other. But at the end of the day, you need to do what's best for your homestead. You need to keep your family together. You know, you can't be so strung thin that you don't have time for your own family.
And I guess the last lesson that we learned about that you can't do it all, is that really it's okay.
Right.
You don't have to do it all. You can find the things that are the most important for you that you all can do so well, and you guys can do those and be proud of those things.
Right. And homesteading is baby steps. You can start small, just like we did in a normal backyard, you know, with a couple raised beds and a couple chickens, and over time you grow and grow, and maybe you buy a bigger place, maybe you don't. Maybe you're just super happy doing what you can do in your little backyard, but maybe you grow, and over time you start to realize you can do a little more and a little more. And, you know, it's just a beautiful thing when you then someday take a step back and realize all that you've accomplished.
But keep in mind, if there is a time that you realize you're just doing too much, you need to take a step back. It's okay.
Right. We do this probably every few months. We take a step back and really say, what can we continue? What doesn't make sense? And what's taking us away from just leading a happy life?
Right. You guys, so we hope that you enjoyed just spending some time with us. Hopefully learning from the things that we've learned over the past 10 years of
good and
homesteading.
bad.
Yes. And if you did enjoy learning from us today, make sure that you hit the subscribe button below so that you're notified of all of our new videos. And also make sure that you share all of our videos on your social media, because that is what will help us the most. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.
God bless.